Everybody, I'm Miss Cooksey, and today we're going to be talking about domain and range. So domain and range is one of my favorite Algebra 1 topics because it really opens us up to what the rest of mathematics is actually about. So domain and range are going to be concepts that are foundational to calculus and linear algebra, and all of these things that higher level mathematicians think about. And so I really find it exciting because it brings us beyond arithmetic to really interpreting and getting to start to see patterns in the way that graphs behave. So let's start by talking about what domain and range actually are. They are big words that mean very simple things. Domain is all of the x values of a function or a graph. So any x coordinates on a graph is the domain, and likewise, any y coordinates of a relation are the range. So domain is the x coordinates, range is the y coordinates. So here's a relation. We have 4, -4, -2, 1, -2, 6, -5, 6, and 1, -1. If I want to identify the domain and range from a set of points, I'm going to list all the x values with no repeats. So even though there's two -2's, I'm only going to list them once. And I'm going to list all the y values with no repeats. So even though there's two 6's, I will only list them once. So my domain values here are 4, -2, another -2, but we only list it once, -5, and 1. And my range values are -4, 1, 6, and -1. Now we're going to learn how to identify domain and range on two different graphs. The first kind of graph we're going to look at is a discrete graph. A discrete graph means the points are not connected, which you'll see right here. We have all these different points, none of them are connected. So here, to find the domain, similar to what we did above, we're going to list the x values. Again, no repeats. So our first point has an x value of -2. Our second point has an x value of -1. Our next point has an x value of 0. And both of our final 2 points have an x value of +1. So that's our list of x values. This is our domain for a discrete graph. For the range, we're going to list our y values. We also always do domain from left to right and range from bottom to top. So we always start with the lowest numbers first and then build to the highest numbers for both domain and range. So range, we're listing our y values. We're going from bottom to top. So here I have a y value at -3, a y value at -1, a y value at 1, and then both of these have a y value at 2, but I'm only going to list them once. So this is how we find domain and range on a discrete graph. On a continuous graph means that the points are connected. We are going to be looking at domain and range as ranges. So we're going to be using inequalities or interval notation in order to write about the domain and the range. So we'll start with this pentagon right here. So this is a continuous graph because it has connected points. So our domain is going to be the farthest left x coordinate and the farthest right x coordinate. So let's look and see if we can find where those coordinates are. So our farthest left x coordinate is right here. Our farthest right x coordinate is out here. So that means that my domain is going to go from -2 to 2. And because there's no open circles here, we know it's going to equal -2 and equal 2. So we have the domain going from -2 to 2, or we can write that in interval notation with brackets as -2, 2. Range moves from the bottom to the top. So to find the range, we're going to look at our bottommost point. So even though this whole line down here is the bottommost point, we can click anywhere along that. So I'm going to say from here and the topmost point. So the bottommost point here is going to be at -2. The topmost point is at +2. And something important to remember is that range is measured with y's because range is measuring our y coordinates. So when we write about it, we're going to say y is greater than or equal to -2 and less than or equal to 2. You can also write it in interval notation. This is our domain and our range. Let's look over at our next example, which is kind of the sideways U, or the C shape. In this example, the domain begins at our leftmost point, which is at 0, but it ends at our rightmost point, which is arrows. These arrows tell us that the graph is never going to end. So, because of that, our domain starts at 0 and is never ending. So, our x values are going to be greater than or equal to 0. Our range, we're moving from the bottom point to the top point, and here our bottom point is an arrow and our top point is an arrow. Because of that, our range is also, it's going to be never ending at the bottom and never ending at the top. And we're going to write that as all real numbers. Let's look at 2 more examples. So domain left to right, we are starting at this open circle as our leftmost point and ending at an arrow as our rightmost point. This open circle tells us that x is never actually going to equal that specific point. Because of that, our domain is going to start at -2, but not meet it, so there's no equal to sign, and it's going to continue all the way through infinity. Range is going to work very similarly, except this time we have our bottommost point, and our topmost point is actually an arrow again. So our bottommost point is where y equals 1, and then we're going to continue up for infinity. So our y coordinate is going to start at 1 and then continue greater on from that. So y is greater than or equal to 1. Finally, we have one more example. Here, our leftmost point is an arrow, our rightmost point is an arrow, so our domain is all real numbers. To find our range, we're going bottom to top, so our bottommost point is where y equals -2, and our topmost point on either side is an arrow. So we're starting at -2, we're moving up for infinity, so y is greater than or equal to -2, or we can write this in interval notation as -2 to infinity. So in this video, we learned that domain is all of the x values of a function, range is all of the y values of a function or a relation. That when we're listing domain and range from points, we never duplicate, so we always only write an x coordinate one time, even if it appears twice. And we learned how to find domain and range on a discrete graph and on a continuous graph. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. Be sure to subscribe, particularly if you're in my class, so you never miss a video. Otherwise, see you next time.